Olivia Parker thought she was living the dream. A glass penthouse, a powerful husband, and twins on the way. But when she collapsed on the bathroom floor, bleeding and terrified, the man who promised to protect her called her dramatic and chose champagne over her life. What happened next wasn't just survival.
We're almost there.
It was the beginning
keep
of her
breathing.
escape from emotional abuse, betrayal, and a marriage that had slowly erased her.
Welcome to Empire Love Stories. Picture this. You are 8 months pregnant with twins, and you're alone in a glass-walled penthouse high above the city. There is blood on the marble floor, pain is ripping through your body, and a horrifying silence has fallen inside your belly, where there should be tiny kicks. You call the man who promised to love and protect you, but he just tells you you're being dramatic before hanging up the phone to get back to his champagne and his investors. This was the reality for Olivia Parker. But what her husband didn't know was that the man who would show up for her that night, the man who would hold her hand when she finally woke up, who would protect her in court, and become the father her children deserved, was the one person he hated most in the entire world. His billionaire rival. This is a story of betrayal and survival, about how one single night can burn your life to ashes and how you can still build something better from what's left behind. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Seattle penthouse, smearing the city lights into golden streaks. Inside, the apartment was quiet. It was too quiet. Olivia Parker stood in the kitchen, with one hand braced on the marble countertop and the other pressed against the huge curve of her belly. She was 32 weeks pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl. These were the babies who had turned her nausea-filled, swollen ankle months into something she'd told herself was worth it all. Then the pain hit again. It was sharp and twisting, like a hot fist clamping down low in her abdomen. She gasped, her knees buckled, and when she looked down, she saw a dark red stain spreading across the front of her white maternity dress. For a moment, her mind just refused to process it. Then the fear hit her like a ton of bricks. With trembling fingers, she grabbed her phone and tapped on Ryan's contact icon. His smiling picture from their Napa wedding popped up. That was 4 years and a whole lifetime ago. The phone rang and rang and rang. On the 4th ring, he answered. "Liv? What is it?" "I told you I'm in the middle of a presentation." There it was, that sharp edge in his voice. The one that made her feel like a problem that needed to be managed, instead of a person who needed to be loved. "Ryan," she gasped. "Something's wrong. I'm 32 weeks. I can't feel the twins. There's blood everywhere. You need to come home. Please." In the background, she could hear the clinking of glasses, murmurs of conversation, and the low hum of expensive laughter. It was the investor party for his Singapore expansion deal. The big night he had been talking about for months. "Take a breath," Ryan said. "We've discussed this. You had a flare-up last month, and it was nothing. The doctor said you're fine. It's just the hormones making you anxious again." Olivia pressed her palm harder against her belly. There was nothing. No kicks. No flips. The constant acrobatics of the past few weeks had gone completely, terrifyingly silent. "This is different," she whispered. "I'm soaking through my dress. I can feel it running down my legs. I'm scared, Ryan." He let out a long, heavy sigh, as if she were a huge burden. "I'll try to leave early. Just take something for the pain and call your doctor. I'll be home by 9. It's 7:40, Olivia choked out. "I don't think I have until 9. You're overreacting again," he said, and then he hung up. For a long moment, she just stood there, listening to the dead silence on the line. Then another wave of pain hit, white hot, and her vision started to go gray at the edges. Her inner voice, the one she had been ignoring for months, suddenly spoke up, sharp and clear. He's not coming. He never comes. Call 911. Olivia's hands were slippery on the phone's screen, but she managed to dial. 911's, what's your emergency? Her voice was shaking. I'm pregnant. 8 months. Twins. There's a lot of blood. I can't feel them moving. They asked for her address. She gave it. The luxury building downtown. The one that always impressed people when she mentioned it at dinner parties. A symbol of the perfect life she was supposed to be so grateful for. Are you alone, ma'am? Yes. Can you call your husband? Or a family member? A broken sound escaped her, half a laugh and half a sob. I've been calling my husband all day. He's busy. Okay, Olivia, the operator said gently. Stay on the line with me. The ambulance is just 3 minutes away. Try to sit down if you can, she tried. But her legs gave out halfway down. She hit the marble floor hard, and her phone skidded away. The operator's voice was suddenly tiny and far away. Olivia's hand found her belly, her fingers spread wide. Please, she whispered. Please be okay. Please don't leave me. For a single heartbeat, she felt one weak flutter, like the ghost of a movement. And then, nothing. The last thought she had before the gray closed in around her was that she should have left him months ago. That busy had always just meant he was choosing something else. That she had been begging for scraps and calling it love. Sirens howled somewhere below her, growing louder and louder, and then everything went dark. The paramedics found her unconscious in a widening pool of her own blood. Female, late 20s, 32 weeks pregnant with twins, the younger medic, Sarah, rattled off as they worked. Heavy vaginal bleeding, likely a placental abruption. BP is 80/50. She's in shock. They moved fast. They started an IV line, put on an oxygen mask, stabilized her, and lifted her onto the gurney. Sarah's eyes scanned the details. The designer furniture, the sweeping city view, the wedding photos on the wall. In one of them, Olivia was laughing at the camera in a lace dress, her hand held in a man's. Ryan Parker, the tech world's golden boy. He was the CEO of Parker Pharma. Handsome, in that polished, camera-ready way. The tabloids adored him. But the woman bleeding out on the floor looked nothing like the smiling bride on the wall. In the back of the ambulance, as the siren wailed, Olivia's eyelashes fluttered. My babies, she whispered through the mask. Are they alive? Sarah quickly checked the portable monitor. 2 tiny heartbeats flickered across the screen, fast and strained. But they were there. They're fighting, she said. You're all fighters. We're getting you to St. Mary's. They are going to take good care of you, okay? Call Ryan, Olivia breathed out. My husband. Ryan Parker. His number is in my phone. Sarah found it and dialed, putting the call on speaker. It rang 4 times. Parker, a voice said, sounding annoyed. Music and conversation were loud in the background. I told you I'd call you back, Liv. Mr. Parker, this is EMS from the Seattle Fire Department, Sarah cut in, her voice all business. We are transporting your wife, Olivia Parker, to St. Mary's Medical Center with a suspected placental abruption. It is life-threatening for her and for the twins. You need to meet us there immediately. There was a pause on the line. A burst of laughter spilled out from wherever he was. How serious is this exactly? He asked. Sarah's jaw clenched tight. Your wife is hemorrhaging, she said flatly. The babies are in distress. She could die. This is as serious as it possibly gets. Right, he said. Okay, I'll try to get there as soon as I can. Sir, this is not a try situation, but the line just clicked dead. Sarah and Olivia locked eyes. The paramedic didn't have to say a word, but Olivia saw it all right there. Disbelief, anger, and the final confirmation that this was not just in her head. He really had just been told his wife might die, and he had said he would try. Tears leaked from the corners of Olivia's eyes, sliding into her hair as the city lights flashed past the ambulance's rear windows. At that very same moment, in a ballroom across town, Alexander Cole was finishing up a speech. And that is why Cole Biotech is committed to treatments that not only extend life, but also protect the quality of that life. Thank you. There was applause and the flash of cameras. Alex stepped away from the podium, tugging at the knot of his bow tie, already thinking about his next meeting, his next project, his next fight. His phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen and frowned. It was Megan. His sister never called during one of his events unless something was very, very wrong. He answered. Meg? I'm in the middle of, I need you at St. Mary's, Dr. Megan Cole said, sounding out of breath. Now, he straightened up. What happened? There's been an emergency. 32 weeks, twins, a massive abruption. We're taking her straight to the OR. Okay, but why do you need me? I am not exactly qualified to deliver babies. Megan paused for a second. She's Olivia Parker, she said. Ryan Parker's wife. The temperature in his veins seemed to drop 20 degrees. Ryan Parker, Cole Biotech's sworn enemy. 2 years earlier, Parker Pharma had launched a baseless lawsuit, accusing Cole Biotech of stealing their proprietary research. It had cost Alex $2 million and 6 months in court to prove it was all a lie. The judge had thrown the case out and had scolded Parker Pharma for wasting the court's time. But Ryan had just smiled on the courthouse steps, all teeth and charm, and told reporters, sometimes you take a shot. This one just didn't land. No hard feelings. Alex definitely had hard feelings. And when that didn't work, there had been an anonymous tip to regulators questioning Cole's clinical ethics. It meant another investigation, another exoneration, and more damage to his stock price. Ryan Parker played dirty. But Megan's next words cut right through his anger. The baby's heart rates are dropping, she said. She has been calling him for hours. He's not here. Then she added, Alex, she might die alone. In an instant, he was no longer in the ballroom. He was 14 years old again, in a hospital corridor in Boston, staring through a small, rectangular window at his mother's room, where a nurse was gently pulling a sheet over her still body. Stage 4 cancer. His father had visited only twice in 8 months, too busy saving the company to sit by his wife's bedside. At the moment she died, she had been completely alone, and Alex had sworn he would never, ever become his father. I am on my way, he said, already moving. He handed off his champagne flute and made his apologies to the confused donors, shrugged out of his tuxedo jacket, and walked out into the rain. The operating room was bright and cold and humming with frantic energy. Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness as they wheeled her in. There were voices, bright lights, and the feeling of someone squeezing her hand. A voice from above cut through the fog. Olivia, I'm Dr. Megan Cole. We have to get your babies out right now. You're bleeding too much, do you understand? Yes, she whispered. Is Ryan here? Megan's jaw went tight. Not yet, she said. But I'm here. I won't leave you. As the mask came down over her face, Olivia had one last, crystal clear thought. You can't apologize your way into being loved. You can't make yourself small enough to fit into someone else's life. Alexander paced the waiting room, still in his tuxedo pants and an open dress shirt, hands shoved deep in his pockets. For years, He'd imagined all the ways he might one day ruin Ryan Parker. None of those daydreams ever involved sitting in a hospital, waiting for news about the man's wife. The TV on the wall showed a silent news report that no one was watching. Then Megan appeared, her scrubs stained, her hair hidden under a surgical cap. He crossed the entire room in 3 long strides. "Well?" he asked. "The twins are alive," she said. "Both are premature, but they're fighters. They're in the neonatal intensive care unit. A girl and a boy. And her? She lost a lot of blood," Megan said softly. "A complete placental abruption. If she'd waited another 20 minutes, this would be a very different conversation." The knot in his chest loosened just a little. For now, she's stable. She's in recovery. It will take time. "Where is Parker?" Alex asked. Megan's eyes flashed with anger. "Not here," she snapped. "We called him 3 times during the surgery, and every time it went straight to his voicemail." Alex took out his phone. 2 years ago, Ryan had given him a business card and sneered, "Call me whenever you're ready to settle." It was meant to be a taunt. Tonight, Alex finally used that number. The phone picked up on the 3rd ring. Ryan's voice was slightly slurred. "It's a little late for business, isn't it?" "Your wife nearly died tonight," Alex said. There was silence, but he could hear a party raging in the background. "What are you talking about?" "She had a placental abruption," Alex said. "An emergency C-section. Your children are in the neonatal unit. She's in recovery. At St. Mary's." This time, the pause was longer. Alex waited, expecting to hear shock or panic or the sound of a man running for the door. Instead, Ryan asked, "How do you even know that? Why are you a part of this?" "Because I'm here," Alex snapped. "Someone had to be. She called you 4 times while she was bleeding out on your bathroom floor. You told her she was overreacting and then went back to your party." "I was in a very important meeting," Ryan argued. "You have no idea what's going on in my marriage. You're just trying to use this." "Room 518 recovery," Alex said coldly. "In case you decide you want to meet your children." He hung up the phone before he could say something he'd truly regret. Megan stood there with her arms crossed. "Feel any better?" "No," Alex admitted. "Because now I know exactly what kind of man he really is." "So, what are you going to do about it?" He looked toward the closed door of the recovery room. "I'm going to make sure she doesn't wake up alone." Olivia felt like she was rising up from the bottom of a deep ocean. The first thing she felt was the heavy blanket on her legs. The second thing was a deep emptiness. Her hands shot to her stomach and found it flat, bandaged, and hollow. "Easy now," a calm voice said. "It's all okay." Her throat was raw, her voice just a whisper. "My babies," she rasped. "Where are my babies?" A nurse came to her bedside. Her name tag said Jenna Morales. "They're in the neonatal intensive care unit," Jenna said with a gentle smile. "They're a little early, but very strong. A girl and a boy. And they're doing great for 32 weeks. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. "Can I see them?" "As soon as you're a little more stable, of course." "How long was I out?" "About an hour since you left the operating room," Jenna said. "The surgery went perfectly. Dr. Cole is an amazing surgeon." The next question came out automatically, a reflex from 4 years of marriage. "Where's Ryan?" Jenna's smile flickered for just a split second. It was so small that a person who wasn't so desperate would have missed it completely. "I will check on that for you," she said. "But you do have a visitor." "He's been here since you came out of surgery." "Are you feeling up to seeing him?" Olivia blinked. "My mother?" "My sister. Not family," Jenna replied. "But he seems to care a great deal." She then stepped aside. A tall man was standing in the doorway. He was in his early 40s, with dark hair, and a bow tie hanging loose around his neck. She recognized that face. Every business magazine in the country recognized that face. Her mind was still fuzzy, trying to find a name through the fog of exhaustion. Alexander Cole. Alex, he said, stepping into the room and suddenly looking a bit shy. Hi, what are you doing here? Olivia asked, completely baffled. You don't even know who I am. No, he said, I don't. But my sister was your surgeon. She called me. She told me you were all alone, and I have some personal history with that, so I couldn't stay away. Personal history? She repeated. Alex pulled a chair closer to her bed. My mother died in a hospital room when I was 14, he said softly. Stage 4 cancer. My father was in Singapore, closing some big deal. My sister and I were at school. By the time they finally called us, she had been gone for hours. Olivia swallowed hard. I'm so sorry. I can't go back in time and sit with her, he went on. But I can sit with you. And I promise you this, you are not crazy for wanting your husband to be here. Her eyes started to burn. Jenna, the nurse, quietly slipped out, leaving them alone. Olivia just stared at the ceiling, trying to keep her tears from falling. Did you call him? She asked. Alex's jaw tightened. Yes. And? He said he would try to get here. Olivia let out a sad, bitter laugh that didn't sound like a laugh at all. Of course he did. I'm sorry, Alex said. Just 3 simple words. No excuses, no spin, no, but he's under a lot of pressure. He just acknowledged that what happened to her was wrong. And Olivia finally broke. Huge sobs shook her body as hot tears ran into her hair. She cried for the blood on the floor, for her tiny babies in plastic boxes, and for all the times she had apologized for being lonely. Alex didn't say, "It will all be okay." He didn't tell her to be strong or that she was brave. He just sat there, a quiet and steady presence, while she completely fell apart. 10 minutes later, the door flew open. Ryan Parker walked into the room, his tie loose, his suit perfect. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne and champagne. Liv, he said, looking right at her, then his eyes narrowed when he saw Alex in the chair. What the hell is he doing in here? Alex stood up slowly, rising to his full height. I was here, he said simply. Ryan looked back at Olivia. You look terrible, he said, as if that would help. Why didn't you tell me it was this serious? I did, she said. Her voice was soft, but it was also steady. Several times. You were panicking again, he said. You've been doing that this whole pregnancy. I can't just drop a multi-million-dollar deal every time you think something might be wrong. Even now, after nearly dying, a part of Olivia started to shrink back, but then she stopped herself. I almost died tonight, she said. Don't be so dramatic, he said, like it was a reflex. You had a complication. The doctors took care of it. You're fine. You were not here, Olivia said. Ryan breathed out hard through his nose, like she was a difficult client. I told you I would try to leave early. I got here as fast as I could. You got here 3 hours after her surgery, Alex said, his voice calm but sharp. And you only came because her surgeon's brother had to call you and spell out that your wife nearly died while you were out drinking with investors. Ryan ignored him. Liv, he is just trying to turn you against me, Ryan said. He's been after me for years. You know that. Olivia just stared at her husband, the man who once held her hand on a beach and whispered about their future, the man who missed their anniversary for a work dinner, and a networking event, and the gender reveal, because he couldn't get a flight. He didn't have to turn me against you, she said, her voice quiet. You managed to do that all by yourself. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced down at it without thinking. Olivia watched his face soften for just a second at what he saw on the screen. She knew that look. She had seen it late at night when his phone lit up and he would smile, thinking she was asleep. She'd seen it when he stepped out of the room to take calls that he said couldn't wait. Her heart just sank. "Who is she?" Olivia asked. Ryan froze. "What? The person who just sent you that text," Olivia said. "The one who makes you smile like that. Tell me her name, Ryan." He shifted on his feet. "This is not the time for this. Tell me the truth," she said, and was surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "For once in our life, just tell me the truth." The heart monitor beeped on. Alex stood perfectly still, just watching. Ryan stared at the floor. "You're just being paranoid again," he said. "It's the medication. We can talk about this when you're feeling..." "Ryan," her voice was sharp now. "How long have you been cheating on me?" Silence. 5 seconds. 6 months, he mumbled. Olivia closed her eyes. She did the math in her head. She had been 1 month pregnant. "So while I was carrying your children," she said, each word spoken with cold, careful precision, "you were sleeping with another woman." "It was not like that," he said quickly. "It just happened. Things between us have been so tense. All you ever wanted to talk about were the babies and doctor's appointments." I felt pushed out. Sophie was just easy to talk to. Olivia repeated the name, Sophie, feeling like she'd been punched. "Your executive assistant." Ryan didn't say anything, and that was all the answer she needed. Images flooded her mind. Sophie Blake, 28, always in a perfect suit dress with an iPad, hovering by Ryan at company events. Olivia had brought her homemade cookies for Christmas, asked about her family, and even complimented her shoes. "Last March," Olivia said, feeling numb, "the pharmacy conference in Hawaii. You were gone for a week. I packed your suitcase. I put in your favorite blue swim trunks, and I tucked a note in the pocket that said, 'I love you.' You told me the flights were awful. You barely called. She was with you, wasn't she?" The silence from Ryan was crushing. "Yes," he finally admitted. "But it wasn't supposed to be serious. It was just a mistake." "How many times did you make that same mistake?" she pushed. "Olivia, do you love her?" He just stared at her, his jaw tight. "I don't know," he said. "Do you love me?" "Of course I do," he said, way too quickly. She waited for more, but nothing came. His silence was louder than any words could be. The part of her that had begged him for years to pick her, the part that told herself she was just being crazy, finally shattered. "Get out," she said. Ryan just blinked. "What?" "Leave," Olivia repeated, her voice suddenly like ice. "I don't want you here. You are not thinking clearly," he shot back. "It's the anesthesia. I have never thought more clearly in my entire life," she said. "Get out. You can't be serious. We have a life, a company, our children. Children who will watch their mother accept crumbs." She cut him off. "I refuse to be that role model for them anymore." That's when Alex spoke up for the first time. "She has asked you to leave 3 times now," he said. "You should probably listen." Ryan turned on him. "This is all your fault. You come in here with your sob stories and turn my wife against me. Your wife almost died tonight while you were out clinking glasses," Alex snapped, his own anger finally showing. "She called you 4 times, and you told her she was overreacting. You don't need my help to destroy your own marriage. You did a fine job of that all by yourself." Ryan stepped toward the bed, ignoring Alex completely. "You are going to regret this, Liv," he said. "You are being emotional. You just had major surgery. I am not abandoning my family just because you are having a moment." For the first time, Olivia looked at him with no hope and no fear. She was just done. "The only thing I regret," she said quietly, "is that I didn't leave you sooner." Ryan looked back and forth between her and Alex, calculating. It was what he always did in business and life: run the numbers, check the odds, find a way to win. But he seemed to realize there was no win for him here. "My lawyers will be in touch," he said, his voice stiff. Then he turned around and walked out. The door clicked softly behind him. Olivia began to shake, not from fear anymore, but from the relief of letting go. Alex sat back down. "That was incredible," he said gently. "I have no idea what I'm doing," she whispered back. "Welcome to the club," he replied. "None of us do. We just try to do a little better than we did yesterday." For the next 4 days, the hospital was Olivia's whole world. She walked the halls in hospital socks and a robe, trading Ryan's old t-shirt for the shapeless hospital gowns. Jenna showed her how to get into a chair without pulling her stitches. Every few hours, after her vital signs were stable, they would wheel her to the newborn intensive care unit. In a quiet room filled with beeping machines and tiny miracles, she finally met her children. Her daughter, Lily, at 3 pounds 12 ounces, had dark hair and tiny, fierce fists. Her son, Noah, at 4 pounds 1 ounce, had a button nose just like Olivia's baby pictures and a habit of scrunching up his face. Jenna joked he was already skeptical of the world. They were covered in wires and tubes, inside plastic boxes, but to Olivia, they were absolutely perfect. On that first visit, she slipped her hand into the opening of Lily's incubator. Lily's fingers, so impossibly small, wrapped around her mother's and squeezed with surprising strength. "I am not going to let you grow up thinking this is what love is supposed to look like," Olivia whispered. "I promise you that." Ryan visited the twins twice. The first time, he stayed for 10 minutes, snapped a few pictures for his social media, and then left for a board meeting call. The second time, he brought flowers and gave a speech about working on things, which stopped the moment Olivia told him to leave if he couldn't just say the words, "I'm sorry," without adding an excuse. Alex, however, came to visit every single day. He didn't make a fuss or hover around her. He brought her good coffee and sometimes a pastry he wasn't supposed to. He sat with her in the NICU, watching Lily sleep and Noah kick, and he asked about her job before the pregnancy and her dreams before Ryan. "I used to be a school counselor," she said one afternoon, her eyes fixed on Lily's heart monitor. "Middle school. I really loved it. But then Ryan's company started to grow, and I became the supportive CEO's wife for a while. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that I'd go back when things calmed down. But they never calmed down," Alex guessed. She let out a short, humorless laugh. "No, the more successful he became, the less space there was for me to be anyone but his extension." "And now?" he asked her. She looked at her sleeping babies. "Now, I think I want to help women like me," she said slowly. "The ones who think being ignored and gaslit is just part of having a demanding husband. The ones who call for help from their bathroom floor because the person who promised to be there for them doesn't show up." "That sounds like very important work," Alex. On the 4th morning, Jenna came in with a clipboard full of paper. "Good news," she announced. "You are medically cleared to be discharged today." "Oh." Olivia's heart did a little flip, but it wasn't just excitement. Going home. Home, where everything would just remind her of what she had lost. Home, where Ryan could just walk in any time he wanted. The thought made her feel panicked. Jenna noticed. "You do not have to go back there," she said softly. "There are women's shelters, short-term rentals, or friends. I can't go to a shelter with premature twins," Olivia said. "My mom is in Florida. My sister is in Boston. My best friend works night shifts, and I am still trying to figure out how to sit down without crying." A knock at the door stopped her from saying anything more. Alex walked in carrying takeout from a really good sandwich shop. "What is wrong?" he asked, immediately sensing the mood in the room. "She is going home today," Jenna explained. "And she does not want to go home." Alex put the food down and turned to Olivia. "Then do not go," he said. She blinked. "It is not that simple. I have an empty guest house on my property in Marin County," he said. "It's separate from the main house, has 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen. It has been sitting empty for 6 months. You can stay there." She just stared at him. "Alex, I can't just move into your guest house. We hardly even know each other." "You know that I answer my phone when it is important," he said. "Which is more than I can say for your husband." "Ex-husband," she corrected him automatically. Then she realized it wasn't legally true yet. "Almost ex. I'm not asking for anything," he said. "There are no strings attached, no expectations. Just let me offer you a safe place to land while you figure out what to do next." "People will talk," she murmured. "People talked when my company was sued for something I didn't do," he replied. "They will talk no matter what you do. So let them." Jenna cleared her throat. "I am just going to go check on the twins," she said, slipping out of the room to give them some privacy. "Why are you doing this for me?" Olivia asked. Alex let out a long breath and suddenly looked much older. "Because I know what it feels like to grow up watching your mother blame herself for someone else's cruelty," he said. "My father had multiple affairs. Everybody knew. He made my mom feel crazy every time she confronted him about it, telling her she was just insecure, dramatic, and needy." Olivia's throat felt tight. The story sounded painfully familiar. "She died still making excuses for him," Alex continued. "I cannot fix that. But when I see the same pattern, the gaslighting, the shifting blame, the way he made you question your own reality, I can call it what it is. It's abuse, Olivia. Just because he never hit you does not make it any less real." The word just hung there between them. Abuse. She had never allowed herself to use that word. Abuse was bruises and broken bones, not skipped dinners and unanswered calls, not eye-rolling and hearing, "You're overreacting again," not shaking on a hospital bed while your husband complained about his schedule. "Okay," he repeated. "Yes," she said, swallowing hard. "I'll stay. Just for a little while. Until I can get back on my own 2 feet again." "You are already standing," he said softly. "You just do not realize it yet." The guest house in Marin County, 2 hours north of San Francisco, was tucked into a wooded hillside and looked like something from a magazine. Big windows looked out over the bay. The living room had a faint smell of cedar. The kitchen was filled with groceries, herbal tea, and a note in Megan's curvy handwriting. It said, "Welcome. You are safe here. Call me for anything, medical or otherwise." "Megan," Olivia cried when she saw the nursery. She had not asked for this. But one of the rooms had been turned into a soft gray haven, with 2 identical cribs, a rocking chair by the window, and tiny clothes all folded in the drawers. Alex was hovering awkwardly in the hallway. "My sister insisted," he said. "She told me what babies need. I pretty much just moved the boxes." "It's perfect," Olivia whispered. 2 weeks later, Lily and Noah came home. They were bigger now, with fuller cheeks and more alert eyes. Noah stared at everything with so much curiosity. Lily had a habit of curling up on Olivia's chest, listening to her heartbeat. Alex was there from the day Olivia brought them home to the guest house. He carried the diaper bag, opened doors, and quietly built the baby swing that seemed to require a degree in engineering. He never took over. He just changed diapers at 3 in the morning when she was too exhausted to think. He would rock a fussy baby while she took the first real shower she'd had in months. Listen, that night when she burst into tears because Lily had spit up on her only clean, comfortable shirt. "You're not weak for needing help," he told her as they sat on the couch, each holding a sleeping twin. "You're human. You're a billionaire CEO," she replied. "Don't you have something better to do?" "Honestly," he said, "no." For a few perfect weeks, Olivia's world became beautifully small. It was just feedings, naps, doctor's visits, and short walks around the property as her incisions started to heal. She even started an online course in trauma counseling, getting through lectures during nap times. In the quiet, she started to feel like herself again. And then she heard from Ryan. It began with white roses left at St. Mary's after she was gone, with a note that said, "Let's fix this." Next came the texts. "Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just run off with my children. You're overreacting, Liv." Finally, the legal papers arrived. Alex brought in the mail one afternoon and just froze when he saw it. "It's from your husband's lawyer," he said. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. The language was cold and formal, a petition demanding joint custody. "They want 50-50, Olivia said, feeling numb. "He wants equal time." "No, he wants control," Alex said. The very next day, Ryan showed up. Not at the guest house, he didn't know where it was. He ambushed her at St. Mary's at the twins' follow-up appointment. He was waiting for her in the lobby with a man in an expensive suit. "Olivia," Ryan said, standing up. "We need to talk about custody." The other man stepped forward. "Mrs. Parker, I'm Daniel Harris, Mr. Parker's attorney." She hugged Noah's carrier a little tighter. Lily was sleeping in the stroller, totally unaware. "You served me papers," she said softly. "I got the message. We hope to resolve this peacefully," Harris said. "But we are prepared to petition for joint custody and raise questions about your current living situation." "My what?" she asked. "You've moved to an unknown address with a man you've known for less than a month," Harris said. "That could raise concerns about your judgment." Olivia felt a chill, then a surge of hot anger. "You mean the man who sat by my bed when my own husband was too busy to leave his party? That situation and your parental fitness are two separate legal matters." Harris replied smoothly. "Are they?" A new voice cut in. Alex stepped out from behind a row of chairs where he'd been sitting nearby. He looked confident and watchful, and there was something dangerous in his calm demeanor. The lawyer's eyes darted toward him. "Mr. Cole," he said cautiously. "This is between me and my wife," Ryan snapped. "Your wife," Alex said softly, "who almost died alone because you ignored 4 calls for help." He looked at Harris. "If you move forward with this, I will personally fund Olivia's legal team with the best family lawyers in Seattle. We'll subpoena phone records, 911 tapes, and get statements from every nurse and paramedic. We will prove that your client was at a party while his wife was bleeding on his bathroom floor." Ryan's face flushed. "You're trying to blackmail me." "No," Alex replied. "I'm explaining the consequences of your actions." Harris adjusted his tie. "These public attacks can go both ways, Mr. Cole." "With what?" Alex asked. "Rumors. We have documented proof of abandonment during a medical crisis and a 6-month affair with his assistant. How do you think your board will react to that, Ryan? Or your investors in Singapore?" Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at Olivia. "You're really going to let him do this to me?" he demanded. "You brought a lawyer to our children's checkup," Olivia said quietly. "You're the one who did this." She took a breath, feeling a new sense of strength inside her. "Here is what is going to happen," she said. "I am going to hire my own lawyer. We will negotiate a custody agreement that is best for Lily and Noah. And I am done feeling guilty for expecting you to act like a father." She turned the stroller toward the door. "Liv," Ryan called out. "This isn't over." She didn't even look back. "It is for me," she said. 6 months later, Olivia stood outside the King County Courthouse. The whole scene felt like it was from a movie. She stood at the bottom of the steps, nervously smoothing the front of her dress. The wind whipped at her hair as people rushed past lawyers with briefcases, anxious-looking couples, and a teenager being led by his aunt. "Ready?" asked Jennifer Lawson, her lawyer, a woman with sharp eyes and a kind smile. "No," Olivia said honestly. "But let's do it anyway." Inside, the courtroom was formal and quiet. Ryan sat at a table in a crisp suit with Sophie beside him. She looked worn out, as if the thrill of being with the CEO had faded once lawyers got involved. When Olivia looked at them, she didn't feel anger, just a deep sense of relief that she wasn't in Sophie's chair. Jennifer presented their case clearly. The documented failure to help during a medical emergency, the 6-month affair with an employee, Olivia's role as the primary caregiver, and Ryan's unreliable visits. Harris still argued for joint custody. The judge, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on her nose, was not moved. "Mr. Parker," she said, looking right at him. "The law wants children to have both parents in their lives, but only when those parents prove they can be present and safe. You have failed to convince this court." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Based on the evidence," the judge continued, "full physical custody of Lily and Noah Parker is awarded to their mother, Mrs. Parker. Parker will get supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. This may change when the children turn 3, if he shows up consistently and an evaluator agrees." She shuffled some papers. "As for your shared assets," she added, "due to Mr. Parker's misconduct and his abandonment of his wife, a 60-40 split in Mrs. Parker's favor is appropriate." Harris opened his mouth. "Your Honor, that is generous," the judge cut in, "given the circumstances. Divorce granted." Court is adjourned. The sound of the gavel was much quieter than Olivia expected, but it still felt like an earthquake. Outside on the steps, she took a deep breath. The air felt different, lighter. Alex was waiting by his car. He had stayed in the back of the courtroom, a quiet source of support, letting her fight her own battle. "How do you feel?" he asked. She surprised herself with a smile. "Like I just put down a backpack I didn't even know I was carrying for years," she said. "I'm tired, but I can stand up straight." "What's next?" he asked. "I enrolled in a degree program," she replied, "for trauma and family counseling. I want to start a nonprofit, a kind of safe house for women who don't realize they're being abused because there are no physical bruises." He thought about that for a moment. "I would like to help with that," he said, "if you let me, with funding, the board. Anything you need." "I thought you might say that," she said with a smile. "I'll take you up on that. But first, I think I need to just focus on myself for a while." "That's smart," he said. She took a breath. "And then maybe," she added, her voice nervous but hopeful, "when I figure out who I am again, we could get coffee. Real coffee, not the sludge from a hospital vending machine." His smile grew slowly, lighting up his face. "I'd like that," he said. "Not a date, not yet." "Not yet," she agreed. 6 more months flew by. The guest house stopped being a sanctuary and simply became home. Lily was now toddling, and Noah was climbing everything. Olivia learned how to write her school papers while breaking up toddler fights over a toy truck. Alex learned to assemble tiny furniture with very little swearing, how to rock a teething baby for 3 hours straight, and exactly how many crackers can fit in a toddler's hand. One cool October evening, with the twins finally asleep and the dishes done, Olivia and Alex sat on the deck wrapped in blankets, watching lights on the bay. "I need to ask you something," Olivia said. Alex set down his mug. "Okay, Lily and Noah," she hesitated. "They don't know Ryan, not really." He stopped showing up after the fourth visit. "They know you." He swallowed hard. "Liv. They run to you," she said simply. "They cry for you at night. Noah falls asleep on your shoulder. Lily brings you every book she likes, 5 times in a row. To them, you're already dad. They just don't have the word for it yet." His eyes were shining in the dim light. "I don't want to erase their history," she said. "I'll never pretend Ryan didn't exist. He gave me them, and I will always be grateful for that. But I want their legal reality to finally match their emotional one." She took a deep breath that felt like stepping off a cliff. "If you want to," she said, "I'd like you to adopt them. Officially. To be their father on paper, not just in their hearts." For a long moment, Alex didn't even move. Then he reached for her hand. "These last 12 months," he said slowly, "have been the absolute best of my life. And I've done some objectively cool things. But nothing compares to Lily refusing to sleep unless I read Goodnight Moon. Nothing comes close to Noah's face when he sees me walk into a room." A single tear escaped and rolled down his cheek. He just let it fall. "I love them," he said so simply. "Completely. And I love you. So yes, if you're sure, then yes. I would be honored to be their dad in every single way." Her breath caught in her throat. "I am so sure." He stood up suddenly, pacing the deck once, like he had too much energy to sit still. Then he stopped, turned and dropped to one knee. Her heart did a flip. "Olivia Parker," he said, pulling a small velvet box out of his pocket. "You make me want to be better. Not richer, not more successful, just a better man. I can't promise I won't mess up. I can't promise life will always be easy. But I can promise you this. I will show up for you, for Lily, and for Noah, every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." He flipped the box open. A simple, elegant ring caught the porch light. "Will you marry me?" he asked. She thought of bleeding on the bathroom floor, of waking up alone with a stranger's brother who chose to stay, of Lily's tiny hand squeezing her finger, of Noah's laugh, of how Alex always put his phone away at dinner and just listened. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, and then he kissed her. The lights across the bay blurred and shimmered behind her closed eyelids. Somewhere inside, one of the twins started fussing. Alex broke the kiss with a soft laugh. "And that," he said, "is our cue. Welcome to parenthood," she teased him. "Best job I've ever had," he answered right back. 18 months later, their kitchen in Sausalito looked like a small, happy tornado had just ripped through it. "Daddy, more pancakes!" Noah yelled from his booster seat, with syrup on his chin and his curls sticking straight up. "Inside voice, buddy," Alex said, flipping another pancake. "And what's the magic word? Please," Noah sang out. Lily held up a crumpled piece of paper. "Mama, look. It's us." Olivia, 7 months pregnant and moving a bit slower, took the drawing. 4 stick figures in different colors smiled back at her. "Tell me about it, sweetie," she said. "That's you." Lily pointed to a figure with long, scribbly hair. "And that's Daddy. That's me. And that's Noah. And that," she pointed to a tiny dot, "is the baby in your tummy." "Well, we're going to need a bigger fridge," Olivia said, carefully sliding the drawing under a magnet that held up the daycare newsletter. The front of their stainless steel door was already a gallery of crayon art and ultrasound pictures. Alex brought her a plate of pancakes and kissed her cheek. "How is baby Megan doing this morning?" he asked, resting his hand on her belly. "Either she's training for the Olympics or she really loves maple syrup," Olivia said, feeling a kick right under his palm. They'd named their third child after Megan Cole, the doctor who had saved Olivia's life, and brought Alex into it. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Alex said. A few moments later, he returned holding a large, official-looking envelope. "It's from the county courthouse," he said. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and took it from him. Her fingers were trembling as she slid it open and unfolded the papers. Her eyes scanned the first page, then grew wide. "Well," Alex demanded, his usual calm CEO personality completely gone. "It's official," she said, her voice breaking as she laughed. "The adoption is final. You are now, in the eyes of the state of California, the legal father of Lily Grace Cole and Noah James Cole." For a second, he just stood there. Then he let out a shaky, disbelieving breath and scooped both children up one, in each arm, even though they were way too big for that. "Hey," Noah squealed with delight. "Daddy." "Daddy's crying," Lily observed, patting his cheek. He laughed, with tears now streaming freely. "These are happy tears, kiddo." "Happy tears," Lily repeated seriously, as if she were learning about a new kind of weather. Olivia stepped closer, laying a hand on Alex's back, feeling their whole messy, beautiful family breathing as one. On the wall above their kitchen table hung a framed photo from their small backyard wedding. Olivia was in a simple white dress, barefoot in the grass. Alex was in a navy suit, his tie already loose by the time the photographer caught them laughing. Lily and Noah stood between them, their mouths wide open in a giggle. Below the frame, a small wooden plaque read, "Family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up." Olivia looked at them now, her husband, her children, her belly growing with a new life, and felt something swell in her chest that was not the baby. It was peace. A year and a half ago, she had nearly died on a cold bathroom floor while the man who promised to love her ignored her calls. Today, she stood in a sunlit kitchen, surrounded by sticky fingers and crayon portraits, with a man who showed up for 3 a.m. Fevers and daycare forms and all the quiet moments in between. Ryan had given her Lily and Noah. She would always be thankful for that. But Alex had given them a father, and he'd given her something even more precious, a partner. He wasn't perfect, not flawless, just someone who chose her every single day in 100 small ways. She'd learned the hard way that you can't make someone choose you by needing less. No amount of apologizing can turn indifference into love. And busy is just another word for not a priority. What you can do is choose yourself. And the day she did that, everything changed. The right people stepped in, the ones who answered when she called, who believed her when she said something was wrong, who sat quietly beside her hospital bed and said, "You're not crazy, and you're not alone." Olivia wrapped her arms around Alex and the kids, fitting herself into the middle of their big family hug. "Mommy," Noah mumbled into her shoulder. "Can we have more pancakes?" She laughed. "Absolutely." "Daddy?" "I'm on it," Alex said, setting the kids down and grabbing the batter. Real happily ever afters, she thought, watching him. They didn't look like glass slippers and fireworks. They looked like dirty dishes and toys on the floor, and someone who keeps showing up to do the work right alongside you. And that, she decided, was so much better than any fairy tale. Olivia's story isn't about a billionaire saving a damsel in distress. It's about a woman who almost died in a life she was told to be grateful for, and who chose to live a different one instead. It's about calling emotional abuse what it is, even when you can't see the bruises. It is about the terrifying, freeing choice to walk away from someone who keeps choosing everything else over you. Most of all, it's about the quiet, powerful love that proves itself not with big speeches, but with small, consistent acts. Picking up the phone, showing up at the hospital, rocking a baby at 3 in the morning. Just listening when you say something is wrong, and believing you. Family isn't always made of blood. Sometimes it's the people who see you at your absolute worst and decide to stay. If Olivia's journey made your heart pound, ache, and finally find some peace, I'd love for you to share this story with someone who needs to hear they aren't asking too much for wanting real love. Save this video to come back to on the days you need a little more courage to choose yourself. Please subscribe and follow if you enjoy long, emotional stories about heartbreak, healing, and getting a second chance. And if you feel like sharing, tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Olivia on the bathroom floor, the hospital, the courthouse papers, or the simple pancakes in that messy kitchen. Let me know in the comments. I read them all. Half an hour ago. Or maybe I won't. I think I got it out of my system. It's been a great thing. I don't know about coffee. It's freaking delicious. But I'm really starting to wonder. You know, it dries you out, makes everything come out like lava rocks, unless you're chugging a gallon of water every day. It tricks you into feeling like you're not tired, but it messes up your brain, which they say leads to things like Alzheimer's and dementia. But then you see all these other studies that say, a cup of coffee a day, the caffeine, it's good for you. I mean, who do you believe? Somebody sent me this video of this absolute clown on Instagram, and he was talking about how not to deal with it.